What happens when a Hollywood actress known for speaking her mind sits across from one of the most outspoken conservative voices on daytime television? Live, with no script to soften the edges. Make sure to subscribe to the Star Talks and like and comment for more talk show coverage. So the moment starts casually. The camera pans across the table. The hosts are smiling. The audience is clapping. And there she is, Florence Pugh. Relaxed but sharp, dressed simply, not overdoing it. She's there to promote her new project. And the conversation begins exactly the way these segments usually do. Joy leans in first. Florence, congratulations on the new film. You've had such an incredible few years. Florence smiles. Thank you. It's been busy, but in a good way. Sunny jumps in. You're one of those actresses who seems very intentional about the roles you choose. Yeah, Florence replies, nodding. I try to pick stories that say something. Everything feels smooth. Light. Standard. Then Alyssa Farah Griffin shifts in her seat. She's smiling too, but there's a different energy. You've also been very vocal, she says, emphasizing the word slightly. Not just about films, but about politics. Especially women's rights. The audience gives a soft murmur. Not loud, but noticeable. Florence doesn't flinch. Yes, I think if you have a platform, it would be strange not to use it. Alyssa tilts her head. But do you ever worry that actors stepping into political debates alienate half the country? That maybe people just want entertainment? The room gets quieter. Joy glances sideways, sensing it. Here we go, she mutters with a half laugh. Florence keeps her composure. I don't see human rights as politics. A few audience members clap immediately. Alyssa responds quickly. But some people would argue that policy decisions are inherently political. Florence nods slowly. Of course they are. But bodily autonomy isn't a partisan concept to me. More applause. Louder this time. Alyssa smiles again, controlled. I think where some Americans struggle is when celebrities suggest that if you disagree, you're morally wrong. Florence leans forward slightly. Not aggressive, focused. I don't think disagreeing makes you evil. But I do think voting for policies that harm women has consequences. The audience reacts, half applause, half uneasy shifting. Sunny interjects. Well, that's a fair point. Policies do have consequences. Alyssa turns toward Sunny. Sure, but there's also nuance. Joy jumps in, waving her hand. This is daytime TV, Alyssa. We're not passing legislation. The audience laughs, breaking the tension briefly. But Florence doesn't laugh. She stays steady. I'm not here to fight with anyone. I just don't think speaking up means I'm stepping outside my lane. Alyssa nods. And I respect that. But I also think there's a difference between advocating and shaming. The word shaming hangs in the air. Florence raises her eyebrows slightly. Who am I shaming? Alyssa responds calmly, but pointed. When celebrities say things like, if you don't support this, you don't care about women, that feels dismissive to people who have complex reasons for their views. The audience murmurs again. Florence takes a breath. You can see she's choosing her words carefully. I'm not dismissing complexity. I'm saying that certain outcomes disproportionately affect women. That's a fact. Alyssa counters. And some Americans believe there are moral considerations involved too. There it is. The shift from polite disagreement to ideological divide. Sunny nods toward Florence. You've faced criticism online for your comments. Does that ever make you reconsider how strongly you phrase things? Florence shakes her head. No. It makes me more certain that the conversation needs to happen. The audience claps again. Alyssa folds her hands on the table. I think conversations are important. I just think tone matters. Florence looks directly at her. Do you think I'm disrespectful? The audience goes quiet. Alyssa pauses. Just for a second. I think sometimes it can come across as absolute. Joy leans back. Absolute? Or passionate? Alyssa responds. Passion is great. Absolutes shut people down. Florence's expression tightens. Not angry, but clearly engaged. I'm passionate because I've listened to women who are scared. And I've listened to women who feel unheard on the other side, Alyssa replies. The tension is no longer subtle. You can feel the split in the audience, some clapping for Florence, some nodding when Alyssa speaks. Sunny looks between them. This is actually the conversation the country's having. Florence nods. Exactly, Alyssa adds. And that's why we need space for disagreement. Florence responds, softly but firmly. Disagreement is fine. But I won't pretend it's just a difference of opinion when it impacts real lives. The audience reacts again, louder this time. Joy raises both hands. All right, we're getting into it early. Laughter ripples through the room, but it's nervous. Alyssa turns slightly toward Florence. Do you think there's room for someone like me at the table? Florence doesn't hesitate. Of course. I'm sitting here talking to you. There's a brief pause. It almost feels like a reset. But then Alyssa adds, talking is different from truly hearing. Florence's eyes narrow just slightly. I am hearing you. I just don't agree. The audience claps, some cheering. The moderator voice tries to lighten it. Okay, let's breathe. But the tone has changed. What started as a promotional interview is now a real debate unfolding in real time. Florence sits upright, hands folded calmly, but her jaw is set. Alyssa keeps her composure, but she's clearly not backing down. And the audience? They're fully locked in now. This isn't just small talk anymore. This is the moment where daytime television stops being polite and starts being honest. The tension doesn't disappear after that brief pause. It lingers. You can feel it in the way the audience stops shifting and starts listening more closely. Joy tries to pivot. Okay, let's talk about the film for a second before we start running for office here. A few people laugh, but it's lighter than before. Florence smiles politely. Sure, but Alyssa isn't quite done. I actually think this connects to the film, she says. Because you've said the movie is about empowerment. Florence nods. It is. Alyssa continues, calm but firm. Empowerment can mean different things to different women. For some, it's career success. For others, it's family. For others, it's faith. Sunny nods slightly. That's true. Florence answers carefully. Absolutely. Empowerment isn't one size fits all. Alyssa leans forward just a bit. So when legislation debates happen, and some women support those policies based on their beliefs, are they less empowered in your view? The audience reacts with a soft, oh. Florence's smile fades. Not dramatically, just enough to show she's taking this seriously. No, she says slowly. I don't think they're less empowered. I think they're making choices within a system that affects everyone. Alyssa responds immediately. But if they freely support that system, isn't that empowerment? Florence pauses. You can see her thinking. It depends. Are we talking about personal choice? Or choices that limit other women? There's applause. Alyssa exhales lightly. That's where we differ. I think you're framing disagreement as limitation. Sunny jumps in. Well, laws do limit people. That's literally what laws do. Joy nods. Exactly. Alyssa keeps her composure. But they also reflect collective values. Florence turns slightly toward Alyssa. Whose collective values? The audience claps loudly at that. Alyssa doesn't smile this time. The voters. And not all voters agree, Florence replies. Correct, Alyssa says. Which is why we have debate. Florence nods. Yes, debate is healthy. But I think sometimes debate becomes a way to delay progress. There's a stronger reaction from the crowd now. Some clapping, a few cheers. Alyssa raises her eyebrows. Progress according to whom? Joy lets out a quiet, oh boy. Florence answers steadily. Progress according to people whose rights are directly affected. Alyssa counters. But that assumes there's only one moral conclusion. Florence leans back slightly, crossing her arms loosely. Not defensive, but firm. I think some issues are clearer than we pretend they are. The audience noise rises again. Sunny tries to moderate. Let's keep this respectful. Alyssa nods. I am being respectful. Florence nods too. So am I. There's a brief silence. That kind of silence that only happens on live TV when everyone is calculating their next sentence. Alyssa speaks first. Do you think someone like me doesn't care about women? Florence looks surprised. I never said that. But that's often the implication when celebrities talk about these issues, Alyssa says. That if you don't align with a certain viewpoint, you're against women. Florence shakes her head. I don't think you're against women. I think we disagree on how to protect them. The audience claps, this time more evenly. Joy nods approvingly. Okay, that's fair. But Alyssa isn't letting it soften. Protection can look different. Some women feel that certain policies protect life. Florence's expression tightens again. And some women feel those same policies endanger their health. The applause returns. Alyssa gestures lightly with her hands. But is there room for acknowledging moral complexity without labeling the other side harmful? Florence responds more quickly now. If a policy leads to women being denied medical care, that's harm. That's not labeling, that's reality. The audience reacts loudly, clapping, a few audible cheers. Joy leans back again, half grinning, half wincing. This is better than cable news. Some laughter breaks the tension slightly. Sunny adds, I think what's happening here is we're seeing two women who both believe they're advocating for others. Alyssa nods. Exactly. Florence nods too. Yes. For a second, it seems like common ground. But then Alyssa says, I just don't want viewers at home who disagree with you to feel dismissed. Florence responds instantly. I don't want viewers at home who are scared to feel abandoned. The audience erupts in applause. That line lands. Alyssa's expression shifts, not angry but sharper. No one's abandoning anyone. Florence keeps her voice steady. It can feel that way. Joy steps in quickly. All right, let's not accuse each other of abandonment. Sunny looks at Florence. Has this affected you personally? The backlash. Florence exhales. Of course. You get called names. You get told to stay in your lane. Alyssa interjects softly. And conservative women get told the same. Florence turns to her. Then we both know what that feels like. There's a small, unexpected pause. The audience quiets. Alyssa nods slowly. Yes, we do. For the first time, there's something close to mutual recognition. But tension doesn't disappear that easily. Joy asks, so what's the solution? Because clearly the country's divided. Alyssa answers first. More listening. Florence responds, more accountability. The audience reacts, split again. Sunny smiles slightly. Those aren't mutually exclusive. Alyssa says, they can feel that way when the conversation starts with accusations. Florence replies, or when it starts with dismissing urgency. That's when the energy shifts again. It's no longer polite debate. It's two perspectives pushing firmly against each other. You can see producers off-camera signaling time, but no one at the table is ready to move on. Alyssa's voice stays measured. I don't dismiss urgency. I just think policy needs careful consideration. Florence leans forward again. Careful consideration shouldn't mean paralysis. The audience applauds loudly. Joy raises her hands again. Okay, we are officially in it now. The crowd laughs, but they're glued to every word. This isn't promotional anymore. It's personal, and neither of them is backing down. By this point, the energy at the table is different from how it started. The smiles are thinner. The pauses are heavier. The audience isn't just reacting. They're anticipating. Joy glances toward the producers again, then back at the table. We are clearly not going to solve national policy before the commercial break. A few nervous laughs ripple through the crowd. But Alyssa looks directly at Florence. I want to ask you something honestly. Florence nods. Okay. When you speak out, Alyssa continues, do you ever worry that you're contributing to the idea that there's only one acceptable viewpoint in Hollywood? The audience reacts with a soft murmur. Florence doesn't hesitate. Hollywood isn't a voting bloc. Alyssa tilts her head. But culturally, it leans heavily one way. Sunny interjects. So do a lot of industries. Alyssa shrugs slightly. Sure. But when dissenting voices feel unwelcome, that's a problem. Florence folds her hands on the table. Are you saying conservative actors can't work? I'm saying some feel they have to stay quiet, Alyssa replies. Florence leans back, thinking. I think people stay quiet for many reasons. Fear exists on all sides. The audience gives a small round of applause. Alyssa presses gently. But you don't feel afraid speaking out. Florence answers calmly. I've faced backlash. That's not nothing. But you're still embraced by the industry, Alyssa says. Florence raises an eyebrow slightly. Are you suggesting I should be punished for having opinions? The audience reacts louder now, a mix of applause and gasps. Alyssa quickly shakes her head. No, I'm asking if you acknowledge the power dynamic. Florence nods slowly. Of course there's power in visibility. That's why I use it. Alyssa responds, and with power comes responsibility. Florence's tone sharpens just slightly. I agree. Responsibility to not silence others, Alyssa adds. Florence replies immediately, disagreement isn't silencing. Alyssa counters, it can feel that way when the messaging is absolute. Joy jumps in, sensing the temperature rising again. We've gone from the movie to the Constitution in record time. The audience laughs, but it doesn't fully break the tension. Sunny looks at Florence. Do you think there's any scenario where you'd say, okay, I see your side? Florence pauses longer this time. I can see why someone holds a belief. That doesn't mean I agree with its consequences. Alyssa nods. That's fair. But sometimes it feels like people who disagree are painted as uncaring. Florence turns toward her fully now. Do you feel painted that way by me? There's a stillness in the room. Alyssa hesitates, just briefly. Not personally, but culturally, yes. Florence's voice softens slightly. I don't think you're uncaring. A few audience members clap gently. But I do think some policies hurt people, Florence continues. And if we can't say that out loud because it's uncomfortable, then what are we doing? The applause builds again. Alyssa leans in. We can say it. I'm saying we should also acknowledge that the other side believes they're preventing harm too. Sunny nods thoughtfully. That's true. Most people don't wake up thinking they're the villain. Joy adds, except maybe on Twitter. Big laugh from the audience. Even Florence smiles for a second. But Alyssa stays focused. Intent matters. Florence replies, impact matters more. The audience reacts strongly to that line. Louder applause, a few cheers. Alyssa doesn't flinch. Impact is interpreted differently depending on values. Florence shakes her head slightly. Not when it's measurable. The room gets quieter again. Alyssa responds, measured but firm. You're assuming data tells the whole story. Florence answers quickly. I'm saying lived experiences do. Sunny interjects, trying to widen the lens. Both of you are talking about women's lived experiences. Just different groups. Alyssa nods. Exactly. Florence nods too. Yes. For a split second, there's alignment again. But then Alyssa adds, I just don't think calling policies harmful invites collaboration. Florence's expression tightens. If something is harmful, what word would you prefer? The audience makes that collective sound again, that half gasp, half anticipation. Alyssa thinks before answering. I'd prefer we start with, let's talk about what we're trying to achieve, instead of labeling. Florence replies, but labeling something as harmful isn't an insult. It's a description. Alyssa shakes her head gently. It depends on who's listening. Joy leans forward. Okay, I have to say, this is probably one of the calmest heated debates I've seen. The audience laughs. Sunny smiles. It's heated, but it's respectful. Alyssa nods. I respect Florence. Florence nods back. I respect that you're willing to say this to my face. There's a small, genuine moment there. The tension dips slightly. But then Alyssa says, I just hope viewers at home don't feel judged. Florence responds softly but firmly. And I hope viewers at home don't feel ignored. That line lands again. The audience applauds loudly. You can see producers signaling they're almost out of time. Joy sighs dramatically. We're going to break, but clearly this conversation could go another hour. The audience cheers in agreement. Sunny turns to Florence. Before we go, do you regret anything you've said publicly? Florence shakes her head. No, I regret that it's necessary. The crowd reacts strongly, applause mixed with murmurs. Alyssa looks at her thoughtfully. And I don't regret challenging you. Florence nods. You shouldn't. Joy smiles tightly. Well, that's live television. The music cue starts faintly in the background. But as the cameras begin to pull back, you can still see it, the unresolved energy. Not explosive, not chaotic, but real. Two women who fundamentally disagree on key issues. Sitting across from each other, neither backing down, neither storming off. And the audience? They're still buzzing. Because what just happened wasn't rehearsed. It wasn't scripted. It was the kind of moment that only happens when live TV stops being safe and starts being honest. When the show comes back from commercial, the energy isn't explosive, it's tight, controlled. Everyone's smiling again, but it's the kind of smile you wear after you've just had a real argument at the dinner table and you're trying to keep it civil for the rest of the night. Joy claps her hands lightly. All right, we are back with Florence Pugh. The audience applauds loudly, louder than at the start of the segment. There's excitement in the room now. They know they witnessed something. Sunny jumps in quickly. That was a passionate conversation. Florence nods, calm again. It was. Alyssa adds, and an important one. Joy looks between them. See, we can fight and still sit here. A small laugh breaks through the audience. But the atmosphere hasn't fully reset. It's like everyone knows they just crossed a line that daytime talk shows usually dance around. Sunny turns to Florence. Before we wrap up, what do you hope people take away from your advocacy? Florence takes a second before answering. I hope they understand that it comes from listening, from hearing stories, not from trying to divide. There's applause, steady, warm. Alyssa nods slightly. And I hope people watching understand that disagreement isn't the same as indifference. Some audience members clap for that too. Joy points toward the crowd. You see? That's the conversation. But the tension flickers again when Sunny asks Alyssa, "Did anything Florence say resonate with you?" Alyssa doesn't dodge it. "Yes, the idea that fear is real for many women. I don't dismiss that." Florence glances at her, acknowledging it. And Alyssa continues, "I just want space for moral disagreement without being labeled as harmful." The audience reaction is mixed, some applause, some silence. Florence responds quietly, but directly. "And I want space for calling out harm when I see it." They hold eye contact for a moment. Not hostile, not friendly, just firm. Joy breaks it. "Well, we're not solving it today." The audience laughs again, but this time it feels lighter. The segment ends with Florence promoting her film briefly, almost as an afterthought. The conversation clearly overshadowed it. As the credits roll and the cameras pull back, you can see Florence and Alyssa lean slightly toward each other. Not arguing, just speaking quietly off mic. It's not dramatic. It's not explosive. It's two people continuing a conversation without the audience's applause dictating the rhythm. And then the clip hits social media. Within minutes, short clips are circulating on X, on Instagram, on TikTok. Headlines start popping up. Florence Pugh pushes back on The View. Alyssa Farah Griffin challenges Hollywood activism. Daytime TV debate gets heated. Some users praise Florence for standing firm. Others applaud Alyssa for asking the tough questions. Comment sections explode. One viral post quotes Florence, "Impact matters more." Thousands of shares. Another viral post quotes Alyssa, "Intent matters." Thousands more. Cable news panels start referencing the exchange later that afternoon. Commentators debate whether celebrities should speak on policy. Others debate whether talk shows should host political disagreements during entertainment segments. By evening, the clip has millions of views. Behind the scenes, sources say there wasn't any shouting backstage. No dramatic walkouts. No slammed doors. Florence reportedly thanked the hosts before leaving. Alyssa spoke with producers briefly, but didn't express anger. Just said she felt it was a necessary conversation. The next day, when Alyssa returns to the show, Joy jokes, "So, any more Hollywood guests you'd like to debate?" The audience laughs. Alyssa smiles. "Only if they're ready." And online, viewers are still divided. Some say Florence was too rigid. Others say Alyssa was too defensive. Many say it was refreshing to see a disagreement that didn't devolve into chaos. Because here's the thing, no one yelled. No one stormed off. No one was silenced. It was uncomfortable, yes. But it was real. And that's what made it stick. Florence later gives an interview where she says, "I don't regret conversations. I regret when we avoid them." Alyssa, in a separate segment, says, "We can disagree strongly and still share a table." The clip continues to trend for days. Memes are made. Reaction videos flood YouTube. Commentators analyze body language. People replay the exact moment Florence asked, "Whose collective values?" Others replay the line, "Intent matters." The exchange becomes one of those daytime TV moments people reference weeks later. Not because it was explosive, but because it felt authentic. And that's why it resonated. Two women, two viewpoints, one live table. No script, no safety net, just conversation. And now we want to know what you think. Was Florence right to stand firm? Was Alyssa right to challenge her? Did the debate cross a line? Or was it exactly what daytime television needs more of? Share your opinion in the comments and subscribe to the Star Talks for more real talk show stories.